All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call tonight's meeting of the Cleveland Heights Planning Commission for our February meeting to order. Feeling quite popular today. Thanks to you all for coming out. Let's first start with noting that Commissioner Wobig is absent, but all the other commissioners are present. I believe we had the January minutes. Oh, no, we did not have the January minutes. Oh, right. I remember that line in the email. Okay, so we will hold till next month to consider the January minutes. We want to move right along because we clearly have a lot of folks interested in the cases tonight. But first, anybody tonight who's an applicant or a member of the public who even thinks that they might speak tonight, we're going to have our assistant law director swear or affirm you in. So please stand and we'll let Justin take it from here. So if you're here to speak at any point during, as a member of the public or as an applicant.
All rise. Okay. For those who plan to speak, do you affirm or do you swear to testify to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. I do.
Thank you. May be seated. We are just going to go quickly into the agenda. So project number 25-04, this is Berger 3543 Shannon. This is a reduction in required enclosed private parking. And Brooke, returning it to you.
Okay, this is project number 25-4 at 3543 Shannon. They're requesting a reduction in required enclosed private parking spaces to allow them to demolish their existing detached 2-car garage and construct a new attached 1-car garage. The subject property is located on Shannon Road. It is the first house northwest of the Jeanette Avenue and Shannon Road intersection. The lot is 62 feet wide and 8,000 square feet in area. The property is a single-family house zoned A single family, and it's surrounded by single-family houses also zoned A single family. The applicant is planning to demolish the existing detached 2-car garage and construct a new addition, which will include an attached 1-car garage. They also plan to expand the rear yard following the demolition for additional on-site recreational green space. And these are the standards under which a reduction in required parking can be granted. And staff found that the request met the 4th exception criteria. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the reduction in required enclosed private parking to allow the applicant to construct an attached 1-car garage and demolish the detached 2-car garage to replace it with green space as shown on the submitted site plan with the following conditions. The applicant is to submit a final landscape plan to be approved by the zoning administrator. Approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals of all required variances for the submitted site plan must be submitted with this reduction in required enclosed parking request. And project and landscaping are to be completed within 18 months.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns for staff? No. I see that the applicant is here tonight. You don't have to share anything. This is pretty straightforward, but if you do, I want to give you the opportunity. You'd have to come up to the mic. And just state your name, address, and that you've been sworn in.
Hi, Jacob Berger, 3543 Shannon. I just want to express my appreciation to the city staff that helped with the applications and all. You guys were outstanding, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We agree. They are outstanding. Okay, is there any discussion? Is there a motion? Mike?
I'll make a motion that on project number 2504, 3543 Shannon, requesting the required reduction in the required private enclosed parking spaces per code chapters 1111, 1115, 1121, and 1161, including the 3 listed staff recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second, thank you. I don't think so, but is anybody here from the public that wants to speak on this case? Okay, I didn't think so. All right, with that, sorry, we went out of the motion for a second, but we're still in the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. No opposed, no abstentions. It passes unanimously. Congratulations. Enjoy your new extension. And we're going to move, and you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting, so. Project number 25-05, this is Dunkin's on 3650 Bainbridge. This is another reduction in parking. Brooke?
Yep. This is project number 25-5 at 3650 Bainbridge, and they're requesting a reduction in required enclosed parking to allow them to have no on-site garage. The subject property is located on Bainbridge Road and is a six-house southwest of the Staunton and Bainbridge Road intersection. It's a legal non-conforming lot that is 40 feet wide and 4,800 square feet in area. The property is a single-family house, zoned A single-family, and is surrounded by single-family houses, also zoned A single-family. The applicant is requesting that she not be required to construct a new two-car garage. There is currently no on-site garage, and the applicant plans to seed the area with grass. And these are the standards under which a reduction in parking can be approved. And staff found that this request met the fourth exception criteria. And we recommend that the Planning Commission approve the reduction in required enclosed private parking to allow the applicant to have no on-site garage and replace the area with green space as shown on the submitted site plan with the following conditions. The applicant is to submit a final landscaping plan to be approved by the zoning administrator, and project and landscaping are to be completed within 18 months.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns for staff? Nope. Is the applicant here?
She is.
Okay. Is there anything you wanted to add? No. Okay. Great. Anybody from the public here for this case? Okay. With that, is there a motion? Okay.
Move approval of
25-05, yes. Here,
Yes.
25-05.
there you go. For the reduction in required enclosed parking for the various code chapters with the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions. That passes unanimously. Congratulations. You don't have to stay, but that's passed. So the city will work with you to give you the conditional use permit. And you're welcome. And I neglected at the beginning of this meeting, so I'll take chair's prerogative right now to introduce our new commissioner, Bob Brown of fame, great fame, being a former City of Cleveland planning director and resident of Cleveland Heights for decades, right? Yes. So we're thrilled to have him with us. And although Commissioner Wobig is out, we are now at our full complement of members, which is very nice after a few months. So welcome. Okay. We're going to move right now to project number 25-06, Ophelia Myers Manor, 2475 North Taylor. Brooke?
This is project number 25-6, and they're requesting a conditional use permit to allow a lodging house to be used as a transitional living facility for homeless women and children. The subject property is located on North Taylor Road and is the second lot southeast of the North Taylor and Edison Road intersection. The property is 5 acres in area and consists of the Amani Temple Ministries campus. Before Amani Temple Ministries began holding services at this location, this property was the St. Louis Church and School campus. The Amani Temple Ministries campus includes a church that also hosts a preschool and a former rectory where the proposed transitional housing will be located. The structure is located on the south side of the 5.2-acre property, separated from the school and church structure by a 2-lane driveway and a grass area of close to 50 feet. North Taylor Road is 5 lanes wide in front, providing a natural buffer to the single-family homes across the street. The site's location is more than 100 feet from nearby Council Gardens apartments, more than 150 feet from South Taylor residences, and more than 200 feet from Glen Allen Drive residents. And the property is zoned A single-family and is surrounded by single-family houses, also zoned A single-family to its west, north, and east. And there's a multiple family one district to the south. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit in order to execute an adaptive reuse of an existing non-residential building in a residential district. The applicant would like to adapt the former rectory to become a transitional living facility for homeless women and children, and it will operate 24 hours a day and will provide dormitory-style rooms that can accommodate 6 families or 30 individuals at a time. The facility will be available for individuals outside of the city, but the applicant expects the majority of the people being served at the facility to be Cleveland Heights residents. Residents will stay for durations ranging between 90 and 120 days. The facility will limit visitation hours to Saturdays and Sundays between 1 and 6 p.m. There will be a designated on-site secure parking area for visitors of the facility, and visitation hours will be strictly monitored for security and will require presenting identification and following check-in procedures. The facility will be staffed by 7 full-time staff members and 12 part-time employees, which will include a case manager, licensed social worker, house managers, house monitors, a chef, maintenance and security personnel, and at least 1 administrator. A minimum of 2 staff members will be on site every day to provide supervision and support, and a full-time night shift security guard and a night shift house manager will be on duty during evenings and nights. Volunteers from the Amani Temple congregation will also provide support and assistance for the facility. A contracted chef will prepare 3 nutritious meals daily for residents of the facility. And the building will consist of transitional living quarters, offices, and space for programming. The first floor will feature a large kitchen, a dining area, a living room or parlor, a welcome center, and offices for staff. And the second floor will host the multiple sleeping and sitting arranged areas for residents and more office space. The basement will consist of 2 large rooms designated for visitation, programming, recreation, additional office space, and a laundry room for storage space. And these are the standards under which an adaptive reuse of an existing non-residential building in a residential district can be approved. And these are the standards under which conditional uses are permitted. And planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit to allow the adaptive reuse of a non-residential building in a residential district with the following conditions. This use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity or create a nuisance for adjacent properties. The applicant is to work with staff to resolve any complaints from neighbors. The applicant is to obtain all required approvals from the Architectural Board of Review. All required construction and installation of the use is to be completed within 36 months of Planning Commission approval. Any housing, building, or fire code modifications required must be completed prior to occupancy. Existing landscaping shall be maintained, or if desired, a new landscape plan shall be approved by the planning director. Any expansion of the use shall require a new conditional use permit, and any required construction and installation of the use shall be completed within 18 months of Planning Commission approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I'm trying to distinguish between number 4 and number 8. Like, it seems like they're pretty much worded the same about the construction installation, but different time periods.
Yeah, we could take that off. I think that was a typo.
So which one's correct?
It has on our staff report, it has 36 months as number 4.
Okay.
So I think the last one is maybe a holdover from an old slide.
Yeah, 36 is right.
Yeah. So I have, though, just to check the staff report, because I have 8 conditions here, so I think we might be missing one on the slide. Existing landscape, expansion of the use, and then, 8 also has the double. So, okay, we'll just strike 8. We'll have 7 conditions on this. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? We've had, Karen, we've had similar uses of this property in the past, correct?
So, yeah, so if you recall in your staff report, it reminds you that
Yeah.
this was a property that received a use variance that could have either a nursing home or a lodging home type use in it. And so what they're proposing, this transitional housing is what we would define as a lodging house. And so it would be permitted under that use variance, but a conditional use would need to be granted for that use. In the past, there was an applicant called Nora that did receive a conditional use permit and I think had begun some renovations of the property. I'm not certain how long they were able to stay in it.
Okay, thanks. And we also, just to note for everyone that's here, we received a number of public comments that have been entered into the record and have been shared with planning staff in advance of this meeting. So we have those as well. Is the applicant here?
Yes, they're here.
Zap. If you could just come up to the podium and state your name and your address. It could be the business address and that you've been sworn in.
Good evening. I am Reverend Shepherd and pastor of Imani Temple Ministries at 2463 North Taylor Road, Cleveland Heights, Ohio.
And any questions for the applicant or anything that you'd like to share with us?
Well, this is a wonderful opportunity just to meet a need in the wonderful city of Cleveland Heights. Right now, there are currently 167 children in the school district that are homeless, up from 140. And so this will give us the opportunity to not only train the mothers and to provide a help to the children to get them restabilized into the community. And so we have a number of institutions that have joined on with us, PNC and other institutions that are going to do some training and trying to get the mothers and the children stabilized for a period of, I believe, 30 to 120 days. That's where their stay would be. And so this just gives us a chance to really do ministry and meet the total need of our community.
Thank you so much. Any questions for the applicant? Yeah.
I have just one question. After they've been in the facility for, say, the 120 days, what are the next steps?
The next steps, our program director is here. He will be able to answer that a little bit more clearly. His name is Mr. Bob Ivory.
And we'll just need your name and your address and that you've been sworn in for the record.
Sure. My name is Bob Ivory. My address is 10105 Brushwood Drive, Streetsboro, Ohio. Good evening. To your question, I think the continuum of care is, I think, what separates this from other facilities that may be similar, is because once we have prepared families, mothers, and their children, we do not let them go. There is a open door policy. It's kind of without walls how this service is rendered. So once they have transitioned into permanent housing or more long-term housing, they still have access to case management. They still have access to the same resources that they were provided while they're in the facility. And I think what accentuates that is because they are referred from the school district, they are Cleveland Heights residents already. These students already live in the district. So therefore, when they go back to school, be it the high school or Noble or Monticello, we still have our arms and resources connected to them, not only from the staff that were inside the facility, but our staff also with my program, which is called Students of Promise, which has been in the district for 11 years, we will also continue those services, that outreach, that aftercare, not just for the moms, but also for the children as they transition into more permanent housing situations.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to ask one more follow-up on that.
Sure.
In terms of the availability of the more permanent housing type situations,
Yes.
you work with partners, or is there?
Yes.
I'm just kind of concerned about the challenges that
Absolutely.
you face.
And it is a challenge. It's not just for Cleveland Heights. Cuyahoga County has a homeless dynamic. So there are challenges and there are needs to not only just transition, but to follow up. So we do have our fiscal agent, which is Murders Taylor, Human Serving Systems. So case management is built into the process. From the moment that a family enters the facility, that's when the process begins to not only locate, but transition, but to link them to a myriad of resources that we have access to as a organization, which Murders Taylor has access to as a pillar in Northeast Ohio as it relates to social services and working with vulnerable, both children and adults. So there is Cuyahoga County is inundated in resources and social services. So because you are a part of this facility or you are receiving service inside of Ophelia Myers Manor, you will also get that access to community resources that you may not have access to just if you were just an individual person seeking to, find long-term housing. You're welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the applicant or any other members of your team that wanted to speak? Okay. Are you with the applicant itself? Yeah. I'll just need your name and address and that you've been sworn in.
Yes, good evening. My name is Mark Deere. I live at 3587 Bendemeer in Cleveland Heights.
Very close, yes, close by.
And what I want to say is that, Cleveland Heights is a community that has this open pot of mixture of many different people. We are a city that put our arms around each other in Cleveland Heights. This facility would help, I believe will help improve the education of students in Cleveland Heights. Not only will they become better citizens, that's our goal, but also they will not be turned to crime or other things to survive. We help each other. I mean, where I live at, there's a lot of help around the Bendemeer, the Severance Estates, what they call it. And if we're looking to improve Cleveland Heights, improve the education, because again, at some point in time, these students are going to be adults. They're going to be students behind them. So if there's some way they can have a way to get better education, possibility of going to college or getting better jobs, other students that follow them follow the same program, it could be a reciprocal effect, ongoing. Now, as far as the Manor House, Ophelia Manor House here, what that would do is that would give the community and people here the assistance that they need. I mean, there's a lot of assistance programs, I guess, in Cuyahoga County, but we really don't see it. We don't see the effect of it. There's other programs in Cleveland Heights, I believe, that are different, because this is not permanent housing. This is not a housing for like drug addicts or things like this. This is a housing that has a purpose. And the purpose is to reduce the homelessness in schools, help our students, and also in this program in Cleveland and in Mighty Temple, we have classrooms. So there also would be after school care, after school tutoring. So not only would they get it in the schools, they would get it at Imani Temple in a second floor full of classrooms. So we have a plan of action that I think would be very positive for Cleveland Heights. This is not, again, we don't have NORA the drug plan, the drug recipients. This is actual people that live here. And if we want to be reflective of the model of Cleveland Heights, this is a program to be that model.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now, any questions for the applicant before we move to public comment?
I do.
For the Reverend or for the program director?
Maybe Reverend and Program Director.
Okay, both.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't exactly know how I'm going to phrase this, so bear with me. But what I want to express is I am convinced that Cleveland Heights needs to address the totality of its community. How do we balance the individuals who will be served, their needs, and your embracing a supplying of services to get them through the 120 days or so that there'll be tenants there, with the concerns of the greater community? It's hard to say it, but property issues, even the transition of humans from one phase of life to another creates challenges. I know because I live on a block where there's some transitional housing, or at least a block down. And I sometimes feel as if the compelling need, or the need that is so compelling to assist people who deserve to have stable housing and services rendered, is sometimes overwhelming the issue of the people who are already there. Because we've had a number, well, I'm thinking of one in particular, large development that's going in about 1.5 miles away. And it doesn't serve your population that's going to be served, but it raises some of the same issues. So just how would you address sort of the general community concerns balanced with the individuals who will be rightly served by a project like this?
Great question. Honestly, I would say that Imani Temple has a long track record of excellence in the programming and the things that will be going on at the temple. We are committed to excellence. We're committed to their property values as well as ours. We want to make sure that our facility is top notch. We want to make sure that as a temple, we lead with love. And so the balance for us is this simply, for everyone in this room, for everyone on this board, respectfully, we're all just one phone call away from trauma. We never know what is going to happen in our daily lives. And so the Bible says to us that there go I, but for the grace of God. And so I always want to lead in that manner by saying, we want to be a help to everyone that we can, because it could be us. And so with that being said, we are committed to excellence. We're committed to a standard. We really want to meet the needs of the total man. And we really want Cleveland Heights to just continue to be a shining place. And we want Imani Temple and this program to be a standard, not just for Cleveland Heights, but around the world, of how it really can work between the community and its residents. Bob? Sure.
Thank you, Pastor. And I definitely appreciate that question. Programmatically, I think when you talk about balance, I look at it from this prism. The students that reside in this facility or are facing homelessness and their mom, by being in this facility, we already have our hands around them in the schools. They come referred by the schools. So that's a different dynamic than your traditional county-driven other ancillary services that support homeless facilities or shelters. We have a referral base, which is your school district, which we began with 140 homeless students in October when we began formally approaching this process. And I just spoke to the administrator just a few days ago, and she says, Bob, it's now 167. So we went from 91 parents of families affected to 97 who are already in the school system. So I think this also addresses what in a lot of communities, there is a possible generalization of those and what does a homeless person may represent or look like. And that could be in many different phases. But in our situation with the students that are facing homelessness, there's no evidence, there's no data, there is no report from the district that it has those stigmas that follow them, the drug dependency, alcohol abuse, crime, juvenile detention. That's not the data that the district is reporting. What the district is reporting, that to no fault of their own, these children, do not have stable homes and do not have permanent housing. Just to step back a second ago, I had the privilege of working in the governor's Closing Achievement Gap Initiative, where we dealt with these issues and many statewide. I brought that initiative to Cleveland Heights in 2014. Prior to that, when I was at John F. Kennedy High School with the same initiative, every seventh period, there was a student that would have to go to the office to make a phone call. He would leave seventh period English, and the class was in, her name is Merle Johnson. She's was just a retired state school board member. Left her classroom, one of my students, every seventh period, and I couldn't understand why. And I finally asked the teacher why. is because every day at 2:00, he had to call to find out where they were going to sleep that night, because he had to pick up his younger sibling at the bus stop. It was at a elementary school. So that to me resonated, that homelessness for that situation was not about maybe some of the stigmas or some of the things that we may be concerned about. So the balance to me is balancing the reality that the district has identified as far as what they are saying is a crisis with the needs of the community. And I think there was some other reference to some other facilities that may be similar or providing other services. I would like to partner with those organizations. I would like to share resources with those organizations. I would like to include them in our paradigm that has many resources. So other organizations that may be struggling or may be challenged with some of the dynamics that even some of the opposition may be referencing, imagine partnering with that and building a stronger safety net, a stronger network, and hoping to move all of these families to self-reliance.
If I could just a little bit. So as you and your colleagues look at the staff recommendations number 1 and 2, what specifically do you think you would be able to do so that, number 1, use not being injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties, and then number 2, work with staff to resolve any complaints from neighbors? So I want to get as specific as possible.
Absolutely. And I wish I would have thought proactively to provide you with an already written policy and procedure standards of operation, which delineates just that. When it comes to when you're talking about injurious behavior and any type of risky behavior, and I have to keep going back to the school district, because our students, because their families are already partners with the district, means they attend there. Cleveland Heights is not an open enrollment. So these are Cleveland Heights residents already, which means there are already dynamics, there are already accountability, there's already relationship, there's already caseworkers, there's already social workers. My daughter is the YLU coordinator at Cleveland Heights High School. My staff, the linkage coordinator, has been there for 11 years. There's already safeguards. There's already relationships. I think that's the word that I want to use. There's already relationships in place that can address not only that, but even additional dynamics that may occur. That's not necessarily every situation when you come to providing, shelter or providing any type of foster situation where you have relationships already in place. And then you add those relationships that come from the district, and you add the relationships that we've established or Students of Promise has established over the years. I think that will help mitigate and reduce the probability of some of the dynamics that you're referencing to. And I think when you talk, what's the second one?
Working to resolve.
Resolve, absolutely. And that still goes back to relationships. That goes back to communications. Our neighbors straight to the, to get my dynamics, to the south of us, which is Congressional Gardens. They've gave us a very generous letter of support, endorsement, looking to work with the students in the facility, looking to them to come in and read to the seniors. Participate in some intergenerational activities. Those are our neighbors that are directly to the south of us. And I don't think that would be any difference once there is an engagement with Amani Temple and this facility. So it's not like we're coming to do something in the community. We're coming to become a part of the community and share all the resources that we have that, to me, create that what we call a village.
So if I were to paraphrase,
Sure.
would it be fair to say that for someone who is concerned about the dynamics dynamics of the neighborhood changing from single-family homes to a concentration of not single-family homes and more humans in concentrated spaces.
Yes.
And that they're concerned about just changing the nature of where they live already. That your proposal has structure and defined and managed relationships
Yes.
that will support
Absolutely.
and alleviate some of those concerns?
Not only does it have structure and support, it has the resources, it has the connectability, it has the ability to anticipate problems, anticipate dynamics that a single family home may not. So if you have 7 families in Amani Temple and you have 7 families individually separate of themselves in houses right across the street, there are resources in this one facility that may not per se be in those single family homes that may have the same dynamics, if not more intrusive. So to be able to say we have created, or should I say we have expanded what Students of Promise has been already doing in Cleveland Heights. We've just not done it under one roof, under one building. We've done it in partnership with the school district. Now we're expanding the school district as if this was a larger campus, say, of Cleveland Heights, but these 7 families happen to live at 2475 North Taylor with the same resources, with the same accountability, with the same connectability, with the same professionalism, with the same expertise that you already have in your school district. They just happen to sleep there every day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, with that, you want to, no.
Madam Chair, I was just going to remind everyone in the audience, too, that this is a conditionally permitted use. And as with all conditionally permitted uses, that item 1 and 2 are in place so that should there be any concerns that arise, there's a process, there's a method through the city's process also to touch base with that applicant to say, we've had some concerns, we need to work with you, we need to straighten this out. Or if you can't, then you have to come back to Planning Commission and face the reality that your conditional use could be revoked. So there's an extra safeguard when you have a conditional use within the city.
Yes. I was going to say that, but that's perfect. No, it's good. We probably get that after public comment, but I am presuming that most people that are here for public comment on this case. Yes, I see heads nodding. Okay, so if you would like to speak on this case, if you could just raise your hand. Only two, okay. So let's start with you right here and just come up and you'll be next, ma'am. Yeah. And just need your name, your address, and confirm that you've been sworn in.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Greg Jones, and I reside at 1425 Forest Hills Boulevard. I have been sworn in. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to just kind of comment on this. I consider myself to be, I've been living on Forest Hills for the last 14 years, and I consider myself to be a very civic-minded neighbor. I don't want to take away from anything that the Amani Ministries is proposing to do. I think the mission and the concept is very honorable. We have had, unfortunately, in my neck of the woods, in my neighborhood, a lot of problems with 2 transitional facilities that are both less than a quarter mile from my house. And I didn't even know there was one that we were told about. And I do want to say that a lot of the neighbors are very concerned about what they want to call a lack of communication about these things. And we're finding out about these facilities after the fact, and people are already, moving in. I was aware of one that is 2 houses down from mine, and I know the record has reflected a number of first responder incidents there, thefts and fires and all sorts of things. I was not aware of another one that is the other way, closer to the intersection of Mayfield and Forest Hills Boulevard. I knew there were a lot of first responders going there, but I did not know that it was a transitional facility until last week. And I've been in this neighborhood for 14 years. So a lot of people don't know. And unfortunately, what's happened with these two facilities is causing civic-minded neighbors to be very concerned about anymore. Not, again, to take away from anything that they want to do. I think the mission is great. So I think the community is interested in knowing more about all of this and what they plan to do, what the safeguards are. I think people don't want to find out about these things after, kind of after the fact. And I don't know what sort of communication could be made, but most neighbors aren't aware of these things. And we find out about them, and then people are very concerned and perplexed. And, what are you talking about? And that's like, well, that's what's happened. And people are wondering how it happened and why we weren't told about it. And I kind of think about the notices we get in the mail about people who are predators, child predators. We get mailers. We don't know who these people are. Again, I think the women and children, there's more information about those folks, but these other two examples that are within a quarter mile of my house, we have no idea where these people came from, why they're in transitional centers, what put them there. Are they dangerous? So those are just concerns that we have. And I just wanted to, state for the record that I am a concerned, civic-minded neighbor.
Thank you so much. Just pausing there for a second. So when there is any sort of use of a property that it requires a conditional use permit, it goes through this process with this planning commission, and there's notice within a certain radius to neighbors about that. And we've had this again, like in the past in different properties in Cleveland Heights, a limiting factor in considering some facilities that either have mental health, folks with mental or behavioral health concerns, or drug or alcohol or recovery, is that we're not permitted by law to consider that as a reason to not grant a conditional use permit. And we've had that, for all of you who may or may not be following the Metro Health behavioral health facility in Severance. That was quite a hot topic with quite the consideration, but we're limited by the law as to what we can consider when considering neighbor and public comment. Now, I guess I'm mentioning that here because I'm not sure, and this is where I'll turn it back to planning staff and perhaps members of council. I'm not sure if if it's permitted to have a transitional house or a halfway house or something like that without a conditional use permit. And if they are existing without them, it wouldn't come to us. It wouldn't have public notice requirements, and it would not have this process where we have public comment. So Karen, do you have
So this is a big discussion.
Okay.
And the problem with trying to discuss it briefly is that everybody uses terms very loosely.
It's fair.
So often people will call with a question about group home. The zoning code does not use that language because we get everything from somebody that has a group of people that are trying to live together like a family, which is what would be allowed in any single family house, to people who are trying to provide some type of, for example, medical care, where people would fly in for a month and then fly off after they got treated, which is an institution. So we have a process where we try to have the description of what you're trying to do. If it's in truly housing and people are going to be living like a family, there's a form that gets filled out. And if that's the case, then they can live in a single family home as a family. Now, that doesn't mean
without,
that,
just to put a finer point on it, without any conditional use permit
Correct.
or permission granted from the
Correct.
the
And that
city.
doesn't mean that, just like any family, they need to follow the rules of our community and society. So if there's noise concerns or there's something else going on, there's processes like for any home that should be followed, and you should be reporting that.
To either police or the
Police or
city.
or if it's the houses that are being maintained, it would go to our
Building.
our housing or building department to follow up on. So it's just like any other home within our community. And we all know we have great neighbors who are homeowners, and some of us unfortunately have had neighbors that we wish would find new housing right next door to us. But that's just the luck of the draw. So that would be true too for these folks that are living together as families. If there's a concern or an issue around behavior, that could be a police call. If it's about the way the house is being maintained, perhaps that's a call to our housing department.
Yeah. And I'm going to offer perhaps after this meeting or sometime in the future, if you want to provide the addresses, certainly the planning staff could let you know if there is a conditional use permit or if there's been anything, any communication with the city. And then I'm sure you can advise on, potential places within either the city or the police department that you can talk to. Okay. So that I just want to make sure that was addressed because it is important. And we do often get concerns about not being notified, but we can only notify if there's a conditional use permit. I mean, that's or a variance we'll get if the Board of Zoning Appeals or, through the appropriate commission or body. Ma'am, you are next. So just come on up and need your name and your address and affirm or confirm that you've been sworn in.
My name is Angela Clark. I live on Edison, which is the street that the actual building side of it is on, where you drive into the driveway. I have a huge concern as far as most shelters that I know, you have to be out by a certain time in the morning and in by a certain time in the evening. In the morning, when you release them, where do they go?
Well,
if they're not students, because then they're standing outside or just wandering the neighborhood. How does that work? How does that?
So just a note on how public comment works. So this is public comment to us.
Okay.
Commissions.
Well, yeah,
Hear
that's
all
what
your questions, and then at the end of public comment, we'll invite the applicant to come up and address those questions.
Okay, and I also want to know, because we were never notified. I've been there for 22 years. Never have I, just out the blue. And I don't know if it's something that maybe I didn't get in the mail and everyone else did, but it's just like out the blue this comes in. And you guys speak on Glen Allen, which is behind. I'm 4 doors down from the church. So it kind of makes me kind of leery because I know you say that you get you guys are saying that it's students from Cleveland Heights, but will it at all times be Cleveland Heights students, or will, if the numbers get low for filling the shelter, will you pull from other places? In addition to that, I'm questioning, I know that you have to be, I don't know, like, are you guys giving, I'll just have another question, but go ahead. Just go ahead.
Well,
because
and have you,
I live on that street by myself,
Yeah.
and I'm questioning my own safety. When you have people coming in from wherever, and I'm not saying that they would do anything to any of us, but we have a lot of seniors that have been there years. And I'm questioning, where does that leave us as far as safety? And cars and traffic, where do they stand when they have to line up to go in at 7 o'clock in the evening? How is all of that working?
okay, is that everything? Thank you. I'm sure the applicant heard that. I'm taking notes, so when we have you come back, we'll make sure we cover everything. Did you also like to give public comment? And have you been sworn in? I'm sorry, I'm trying to, okay, great. And just your name and address, please.
I'm Tony Rupsick, 3363 Seton Road. And again, I see a lot of bad things in transitional housing, particularly what's going on at 1405. She's telling, and the city absolutely ignores it. I've got all kinds of photographs of strange behaviors. They get emailed, they don't do anything. They want us to call the police if there's a problem. Okay, well, so, I'm overhearing people talking about a drug drop-off at a certain time. This happened in 2 years ago. I called the tip line, Cleveland Heights Police to tip line, to let them know what I heard. Hey, there's going to be a drug drop off at this house at about at 2:30 or whatever it was. Nobody showed up. Again, I'm like reluctant to call the police for these little petty things that begin to add up. And you're saying, oh, just go ahead and call the police. So why are we then putting the police in a situation for this additional usage of city resources? It's not that easy living next to or, near a facility like this, and having to be, like a watchdog for the neighborhood. I don't want to be having to call the police, okay? And I went down that route and I was ignored. I was ignored by the city. So whatever this little plan you have and all these great little things and how it's all going to be remedied, it's not going to happen. And I've seen it not happen. So I'm just opposed to any type of transitional housing. And it's destroyed our neighborhood.
Are there any other members of the public who want to speak? And once I close public comment, we won't be able to reopen it. So this is, consider it last call. Okay. All right, we'll close public comment. Thank you. And if I could have the pastor and the program director, if you want to come up and just address some of or all of the concerns that you heard during public comment, however you'd like to address them.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I truly appreciate both comments, and they are fair comments. And I believe I have a fair response based on history, based on having been around these situations for, I know I look 35, but about 30 years. I'll be 60 this year. To the point about it is not a shelter. And so that's just to correct the terminology. On Lakeside, on 2100 Lakeside, there's a shelter. Like I said, I was a correction officer for years. I was in the county executive's office. I'm very, very much aware of resources and how agencies function in this county. You're accurate. You have to be at a certain time. Sometime first come, first serve. There's a line outside. That is not this. It's no more close to that than, I'm not even going to give you an example. I'm not going to insult anybody's intelligence. It is not a shelter for someone that is homeless. It is a facility that once the school district, more than likely it would be their guidance counselor or someone from their social emotional learning department, and they have identified a family. Like today, when I spoke to an administrator at Cleveland Heights, and there's a court case right now you have court in this building, and it addresses a family that was just evicted, which means that mom and her 2 small children are homeless, and they are looking for a place for that family to stay. If it so wills this commission, then that guidance counselor or that social emotional learning or that academic advisor at Cleveland Heights School District will give a call to our case manager, and they will have a profile of that family. And they will say, we would like to refer this family who is homeless that attends this school district to this facility. And there's a formal process that will take place. So that is totally diametrically opposed to a shelter. You cannot knock on the door at 2 a.m. and say, do you have a bed here? There is a process. And I visited, in all transparency, a shelter concept. The pastor would tell you, your fire inspector would tell you. We had conversations of, because we want to service this need and no person should be without a home. What about if someone rings the doorbell at 2 a.m. and say, we have no place to stay? So I had a concept of having Murphy beds in the basement just for shelter care until we realized that the doorbell would ring every single day. Agencies would call from not only Cuyahoga County, from wherever they felt there was a bed. That's how serious this crisis is. And it's serious in this community because in just 2 months, you went from 140 homeless children to 167. So the question of, is this open to anyone? By law, by not discriminating, we cannot say Myers Manor facility only for the city of Cleveland Heights. No facility in providing any service has that as a requirement. But just by the mathematics, if there are already 167 homeless children from K to 12 already tonight, then more than likely, since we can only service 6 of them, then there's already a waiting list. So there will not be a line of someone outside the community, even though we're going to get the phone calls. But that's where our relationships come in. That's where our networks come in. That's where I can be able to work with our case manager and help as we're getting calls, and Cleveland Heights is getting calls from surrounding communities saying, how are you addressing your, like South Euclid, like Brush High School? How are you, Cleveland Heights, addressing your homeless population? Because we also have a lot of homeless students. So it is not a shelter. And to the other dynamic, Madam Chair, when it comes to and all I can frame it as, and I'll be brief, as what if this person or that person or this dynamic or this challenge lives next door to me? My response, in all honesty, is they already do. They're all over the city. But we have a response to that individual, no matter what the dynamic is, in an array of services with an array of professionals with years and years and years of experience. And with that experience comes success stories. Because one of the individuals that I am looking at as being a house manager, she lived in a homeless facility. She was in Laura's home. And she is probably the best person that you could have as a staff person in this community because she lived it. So when you say, how do we address a dynamic where we are thinking that someone may be unsavory or so forth, my response to that is that we are responding to a need, to a call that says we have 167 homeless children that are already your neighbors. You just don't know which one they are. But once they become a part of this campus, then your probability of them depending on first responders, social safety nets, city resources is going to significantly reduce. Thank you.
No,
Yes, sir.
stay, don't go. We have some follow-up questions too. Go ahead.
Could you describe what a typical day would be for one of the residents of that facility? It seems that it's a specific program that goes from beginning to end. And what are the types of things that are being done?
Sure. Excellent question. My favorite type of question, programmatically speaking. So you have a mom. Her name is Candace, and she has a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. The 6-year-old and the 8-year-old go to Noble Elementary. The 4-year-old may be at the Amani Temple daycare. So the typical day for that family would be the same typical day of your family that has a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. The difference is they would live and reside in this facility with the mom who may be going to work that morning. And if she doesn't have a car, our van will take her. If she doesn't have money for Uber, I have because of successful ARPA dollars a couple of years ago, a 32-passenger bus and a 16-passenger van. What I'm getting at, sir, is resources. So she's off to work. The children are off to school just like any other family in that neighborhood. She has a meal that's prepared for her because we have made that a part of our programming. But she also, if she wants to get up and make waffles and pancakes that morning, she can do that as well for her own family. That can also be a part of her program. So let's skip the whole day that she comes home. Let's skip the day that the students come home. The other thing that's important is that the parents supervise their children. Our staff are not babysitters. The staff are not daycare. So the mom, just like she would have to, if she was not home, she would have to arrange for the supervision of her own children. So supervision is a key part that also would reduce some of the, maybe another facility where you may not have that type of supervision. So you may have kids hanging out in the streets and doing some unsavory things. So inside the facility, we have a full-time case manager that from the day that person enters the facility, they're working on their exit plan. There is a profile, there is an intake process, and there is a case plan to say, how do we go from here to independence? How do we go from here to self-reliance? How do we go from here to your own facility? So that's not me doing that. That's not just the case manager. We have partners. We partnered with PNC Connections. We partnered with Future Plans, which is part of the Radner Group. And they have strong interest in workforce development. They have strong interest in job training. They have strong interest in providing interview prep. They have a strong interest in internship. I have a partnership with the Greater Cleveland Partnership who provides internships, who provides job shadowing. So programmatically, I would love to bore you with what would happen if you were a resident in this facility. But will not happen is you would just be here, room, board, a place to stay until your time runs out. The goal is that you are self-reliant after 120 days. And even that, after that, we're still going to have a continuum and some aftercare that to make sure that you can be successful.
I just have a couple of follow-up questions. So I guess the first thing is the expectation, I think, is that they're staying there from 30 to 120 days.
90 to 120, yes.
90 to 120
Or less.
days. Okay, and then work them through the program. What happens if what is the plan or what's the policy if there is an issue?
Absolutely.
There's a threat, there's a domestic violence scenario, there's a crime, juvenile issue. What is the process then?
There is a very detailed exit plan in the event that you, like in any other situation, in an apartment, if you, as I've heard, if you do not follow the rules, if you, and I wish I can have the verbatim in front of you to say, but yes, there are very specific policies as to behavior, as to what's allowed on the premises, as to contraband, as to alcohol, as to vaping. Like I say, I'm a former correction officer. Security control, rules, structure is second nature. And especially in a situation where you have individuals that live under one roof, but they're not related. So you have to have, clear rules. When you enter, and let me go back to the initial question, not just a typical day. How about when you just come there for the first day? So we have a welcome package. We have a greeting process. I'll just be transparent that, you may come from a situation where maybe you weren't, the cleanliness might be an issue. So when you come in, we're going to wash all your clothes before you even get a tour of the facility. We're going to provide you a set of clothing, and you're going to take your own clothing down to the basement, and with our staff, and there'll be 4 stackable washers and dryers, and that's just for safety. That's just to make sure that everyone is safe, and everyone that comes in there is not bringing anything that can't talk.
Thank you.
So that's just us having a forward thought as to how to make not only the persons that live there already feel safe and feel comfortable, but those that are coming to say, okay, you know, this was not where I just came from, or this is not maybe, this is a different environment that off day one, you know, we are looking to make sure that everybody feels safe and feel comfortable. So those things are all embedded programmatically. And everyone from the staff to the volunteers to our partners, they are all have to follow what our standard is, what the integrity is. And what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is this is just an extension of what we've already done. When I say we, when I say students are promised, which will manage the process, we've done this at the school level. We've done this in the community-based level. Now we're just doing it under one roof with individuals that, by not this situation, what is the risk of not providing housing, stability, hope, which my late mentor, the late Senator C.J. Prentice, who began this initiative, which is Closing the Achievement Gap, she called it the social construction of hope. And all we're doing is socially constructing hope, but giving them resources and giving them a network and giving them a community in order for them to strive, because we would hope that they stay in Cleveland Heights. I would like to at least lend in this piece with what I have as a vision. There is going to be a mother that moves into this facility if it is the will of this commission. And PNC and Greater Cleveland Partnership and Future Plans and Murtis Taylor and a myriad of other partners are going to help her get back on track. She's not only going to find long-term housing, within those 4 months, she's going to qualify to buy a home. I project she's going to buy a home in Cleveland Heights. And it may be a 2-family home that the other side she rents out to someone else that was also homeless. So that to me is a different vision and a different premise than what if this family replicates another situation that maybe had an adverse situation. I am saying that with the combination of what we've put together, the scenario that that I just mentioned will make this community the envy of communities across the country.
Thank you.
You know, we had some real heartfelt comments from Mr. Jones, Ms. Clark, and Mr. Rupp, if I got your name right. I imagine things are fairly peaceful outside their homes at 7 o'clock in the morning and so forth. And I want you to paint me a little picture of what it's going to look like around your property early in the morning. I imagine you're going to have staff arriving. You're going to have maybe buses that are shuttling people to work or to school or what may have it. But are we going to be seeing the kind of issues that were brought by these people in terms of, is that going to be a very peaceful looking property that's really, it's a home, but it's a multi-family or home.
Absolutely.
Right on the edge of a residential neighborhood that people have concerns about. And I guess I want you to address their concerns of what,
Yes.
how their peace is going to be impacted.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. And as I stated, I appreciate your comments and your concern. And the action is, yes, it is going to be peaceful. Because just by the nature of the campus that it is on, it's going to beget peace. Because it is not the 20 buses driving up like it's Belfair, where I worked in the 80s. It's not that. It is not Sagamore Hills, where I worked before it was closed, where you had behavioral health and you had all these dynamics. Every single day there was a code blue. I can speak definitively the difference between peaceful, non-peaceful, structured, unstructured, traffic and volume versus you simply have a facility that has at least 7 female adults with a maximum of, between those 7 female adults, maybe another 20, say, children that could be from 1 month old to 5 months old to 8 to 17. So you would have to look at it as on any given day, in any given cycle of referrals, you could have different dynamics. I just mentioned the mom that is in the court system right now that has 2 small children. So those 2 small children are not going to be running around Amani campus at 7 o'clock in the morning. More than likely, they're going to be preparing for school or daycare like any other child that lives in Cleveland Heights. And all we're saying is that we have the structures in place, we have the professionals in place, we have the rules in place, and we have years' experience in place to address any dynamic that could possibly take place at that facility.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any discussion amongst the commission, or is there an interest in making a motion?
I did have a question for staff.
Okay.
And Karen left, so. And I know these are things that probably can't be answered right now, but we received one letter that mentioned 2 addresses specifically on Forest Hills. One was 1452, which is at the corner of Mayfield, and which appears to me not to be transitional housing, but to be Section 8 housing. In other words, just rental apartments, that there is no other than qualifying to be able to get that subsidy. That's all that's involved, and there is no supervision or anything. That was my take on it, but I'd like staff to specifically check that out, maybe report back to us. And the same on that 1405. What is the organization that owns it, and what are they doing? I know we've had, and I will just say this from my 25 years now on Planning Commission. They put me on here and then forgot.
You forgot about all of us, but
yeah.
we won't. That's all. Yeah.
I keep showing up. But we have had at times concerns when some special use is introduced into a residential neighborhood. And my experience has been that a lot of times the concern turns out that the reality is fine. I don't want to try to get into the whole history, but I think these are valid concerns, though, that we're hearing, and especially with those specific locations on the street. I personally see this as being something quite different, because it's not in the middle of a single-family neighborhood, and it is well-staffed and programmed. And there's very specific things that, from what I'm hearing, that will be done. And in fact, I think I read in something you submitted, financial literacy, and other pieces. So this isn't, show up in time to go to bed, get up, get out, hang around the neighborhood, go over to the methadone clinic. No, this is something quite different, is my understanding, and something that I think, will serve the community.
And I just want to reiterate that if there isn't a conditional use permit connected to the property, that is outside the purview of the Planning Commission. So that would be a matter to take up with council or the police department or the building or housing departments, or, and you can always check to see if there is a conditional use permit or some sort of variance with the city before figuring out next steps. Is there any other questions for staff?
Clarify, there was 2 properties that you asked us to.
Oh, yeah, one was 1405, which was a single-family house at the corner of
Well, they have the,
Seton, I think.
well, this is public comment that came to us, so you would have,
Right, yeah. So it's in the letter we got.
Brooke
Yeah,
says she has it.
1405 and 1452. And I'd just like to hear something next time around, as long as it's been brought up, as to what the city's doing to ameliorate that, and whether it's something that planning department or planning staff or commission has any say in.
Any other questions for staff? No. Is there any more discussion amongst ourselves or someone interested in making a motion?
One comment.
Yeah.
What gives me comfort here is this is a professionally staffed facility. I think you tend to get more problems with an individual, single-family house that's being used in a certain way, and there's no professional staff, and there can be problems. Here, this is a facility that will have controls in place and professional staff in place, and that gives me more comfort in thinking that this will be a good use of this property and will be respectful of the neighbors because it will be controlled, it will be staffed.
Any other? Okay, is there someone that wants to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. So project number 25-06, the Ophelia Myers Manor, 2475 North Taylor. I'd like to move it for approval given the 7 staff recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Chair,
There's a second, yeah.
Chair, can we ask that you approve what the use is?
So for project 25-06, request a conditional use permit allowing a lodging house to be used as transitional living facility for homeless women and children per the corresponding code chapters.
With the 7.
With the 7 staff recommendations.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mike, do you still second? Okay, thank you. Any discussion? No. Okay. Thank you. So we'll call it for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any abstentions or any noes? Sorry, I had a moment. I had a brain spasm right there. No. Okay, that passes unanimously. Congratulations to Imani Temple. I just want to make a comment. Obviously, we heard, and maybe I should have said this in the discussion on the motion, but while we heard 3 people with concerns today, we received about 5 or 6, maybe even more public comment letters in support of the housing for with various reasons and explanations. And so we balance everything we receive, both in person and prior to the meeting via email or letter. I don't know. Do we receive letters anymore? We used to receive. No, so I don't think just emails. Okay. And then the other thing I would say is just a reminder, and we talked about this a little bit, but this is a conditional use permit situation. So if there are, and it comes with 2 conditions around not being injurious to the neighbors and to the neighborhood and working to resolve complaints. So if there are issues or if there is something of concern to those that live either in the vicinity, nearby, broadly speaking, Cleveland Heights, anyone can, you don't have to be within a certain radius to register a concern with a conditional use permit. That call would be to the Planning Commission to let them know. And we have, and just a little bit more context, it's very rare, but we just had one recently and we've had one a few years ago where there are issues with the property owner not fulfilling the conditions of the conditional use permit, and it becomes a nuisance or injurious to the neighborhood, and the planning staff will bring that back to the Planning Commission. And we've had the police chief come, we have the fire department, building, housing, and we consider whether we want to maintain that conditional use permit or we want to revoke it. And a revocation of the conditional use permit means immediate cessation of the use of the property as permitted by the conditional use permit. So there is that, I think this was your point also, Len, there is that recourse here on this. I'm not sure, we'll find out what we can do about the other 2 properties. I'm not sure that will be in our purview, but at least with this, there is that recourse. And it sounds like I will volunteer Imani Temple representatives. It sounds like they'd be open to hearing from the community also. Yes. Okay. I got that vibe from the presentation. So, all right. None of you have to stay as we go on to more zoning business, but thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate it.
Oh, wow, that's
I think the scale of this, which then involves professional management.
Yeah, that's okay. We're not, it could be worse. We've been here till midnight before.
It's just an individual, single-family house without really professional staffing.
Well, that's why I wanted them to address what it's going to look like. So-
And if staff is ready, we'll move along. Now this is,
And this is not a homeless shelter.
I'll just give everybody a minute to file out.
That point was well made there.
What?
There's the one woman who talked.
If I'm correct, we're at the Park Synagogue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is.
Thank you all for coming.
So we're going to move to project number 24-33. And this is, you guys, everybody ready? No, that's okay. So I just, hold on, right? Right, yes, that's okay. But I just,
Move closer if you'd like.
I just want to say that for this project number 24-33, Park Synagogue, slightly different. We thought we were going to be doing like overlay, right? Talk about a zoning overlay, but now we're back to preliminary site review.
So correct. You did hear one preliminary review of the site plan, and I'm going to review just a little bit of the zoning of it so that we can get it into context. And then the applicant is here, and they're going to review their updated site plan. So as a courtesy and out of respect for the planning department, they had tweaked the site plan a little bit, and they felt like they wanted to bring that back and review that with you prior to coming in and starting the formal approval process, which I'll describe as I go forward. But that will also in review of all of their plans, but also because this is an S2 plan development, there'll be guidelines written for that S2 development. So not only will there be the map of what that development would be, but some rules around that development that will get drafted and approved by the Planning Commission. So we anticipate being able to do that soon, but not tonight. So let me just, because this is a development project, we always start with
My favorite slide, yes.
I know, this is a
Process.
wonderful slide, and I wish I could take credit for it, but this is an air exam slide.
Yeah.
So, and it's great. So it's really, the intent here is to let people know that there is purpose and we want to hear from the public. It's just that different boards review different items. And so it's important to know if you have a design concern, that's really an architectural board of review comment. But so as we go through these, you can see. So the Planning Commission will review the conditional use permit for the renovation of the synagogue, which has happened. And I'm going to go to a slide where we talk about what's already occurred. And the zoning map change, Planning Commission has already reviewed. It's now with City Council, and I will mention that later also. And then the overall site plan and zoning, including the S2 development guidelines for the project, that will be reviewed by the Planning Commission. We anticipate that review process to start in depth next month with more of a working session where there's a little bit of give and take perhaps between Planning Commission and staff and the applicant about what those rules could be. And of course, there's public comment to hear from the public about any concerns or items that you think maybe need to be addressed by a rule or a guideline. So then, as I said, the Architecture Board of Review looks at the architecture and the materials and how a project looks. If there's a need for a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals is the board that would grant that variance, and that's based on there have to be conditions and practical difficulties created by the site. The staff, we try to help guide projects through the different boards and approvals. And then City Council will review the zoning map change and they will then make recommendations. The Planning Commission makes recommendations to them. And if there is any financial development agreement, again, that's done by City Council. And it's really a separate process from the design review that we're doing now and tonight. So let's just go through where we are with the process. So in little print, sorry, I had to make it little because I wanted it all on one slide. We've already had a preliminary review with Planning Commission. Landmark Commission is also reviewing this because the synagogue is a historic building and structure. And they have also gone to the Architecture Board of Review for preliminary review. The site needed to be subdivided, and so those parcels have been subdivided and approved by the Planning Commission. Last month, Planning Commission did review the conditional use for an adaptive reuse of the synagogue under the existing zoning code, and they did approve that to move forward. They did review the conditional use for the mikvah. Just to kind of explain to everybody again, the mikvah was an accessory structure to the synagogue when it was a church. I'm sorry, when it was a synagogue, a place of worship is what I wanted to say, because it's no longer primarily a place of worship and the mikvah is actually on a separate parcel. We had to do a process granting it its own conditional use so that it can continue serving the public that it serves as a mikvah and a holy place and bathhouse. And last month also, Planning Commission heard the zoning map change request, and I'm going to review that in a minute, just in a little more detail. And they made a recommendation to City Council to approve that. So I already mentioned that Architecture Board of Review has reviewed this as a preliminary juncture. So now we're on February 12th. The applicant asked to come back and one more time do a preliminary review before we start the formal planning and review process. So there'll be no action taken tonight by the Planning Commission other than to hear from the applicant and should there be any comments from the public. And then you'll see that Landmark, this goes to March 3rd. I wanted to say City Council is holding their public hearing at 6 p.m. in this room on the zoning map change. And it is a public hearing, so the public will be welcome to say something. The applicant, of course, will review it, as will staff review the zoning. Then on March 4th, Landmark Commission will hear and I believe consider their recommendations for approval when there's a certificate of appropriateness, I believe, is what Landmark Commission has to grant for the restoration of the synagogue site itself. Then we are anticipating again that it would be March 12th that the Planning Commission, we would work with the Planning Commission to review the S2 development plan and start working on those guidelines, anticipating that it would probably be the April meeting where we would perhaps consider approval of a larger plan as well as the guidelines. Should the Board of Zoning Appeals be needed, that would be on April 16th. And then on May 14th, we will specifically look at just phase one and issue the conditional use for phase one to move forward, which does include some townhouses, which the applicant will talk about a little bit later tonight. So then in late May or June, we would think Architectural Board of Review would make their final review of this. And at some point, the City Council will have reviewed the zoning and the map changes that needed to take place. So this is the existing zoning map in the site. The site is outlined in blue, and you can see there's actually 3 parcels. The 3 parcels were necessary, especially for this. Well, this site, I think it's important for all of us to remember, it's always functioned as one place. So while there's 3 parcels, it always was just the Park Synagogue site. We viewed it as one entity. And that's the beauty of the S2 zoning, is that it will continue to be viewed as one entity. The 3 parcels were really necessary because the synagogue is receiving historic tax credits. And we saw this also with the College Club. When they received college historic tax credits, they really found it necessary that the historic property just be in and of itself on its own individual parcel. And so that is what we're seeing with all historic tax credits. So there's a view shed, and so they'll tell you all about that they're all preserving as part of that historic tax credit and the development of the synagogue. I'm going to let them talk about that. But when the applicant was first talking to staff about this project and what zoning should it be, because it's currently a single family and multifamily just along Mayfield Road, the recommendation from staff, the advice given to them was to take a look at and investigate the S2 mixed-use development site zoning. And the reason for that is because of the S2 development plan. It's the only zoning that we have where the entire zoning district can be created in one plan. Well, not the only, also S1, which is our Severance Center. So all of the interior of Severance is also a plan development. So just as Severance has a plan development, if somebody comes in with a use that's not in that plan, we have to go back to the Board of Control, have them consider that use. They have to amend the plan, then look at the use and how that would be developed and get approval. So you have to follow the plan in order to develop. If it's not in the plan, then you have to come back and ask for the plan to be modified. So because this has been one site, we know it was going to be divided into 3 parcels. Obviously, we need it to be viable and contribute to our community. The S2, as they looked at it, seemed to fit the bill for what they were trying to do. The S2 district does allow for uses that are in both the multifamily as well as a commercial district. But the most important part of it, and especially the need, I think that both the applicant saw and staff, was this S2 plan development. And it's really intended to look at unique sites in our community, how we can preserve that unique character of that site while still having a creative use and an economically viable use developed on the site. So, and it's to encourage sustainability practices. And as you hear more from the applicant, I think you're going to hear those objectives being met. I thought it would be, we'll get into this in real detail next month, but I just wanted to remind all that there are some basic development standards that they have to follow in terms of maximum density, yard requirement, height requirements. You'll hear a little bit about those tonight. But then you see that additional standards, and additional standards are where Planning Commission and the applicant can talk about what's unique about this site and what rules or guidelines should we have in our development plan that will ensure that those unique qualities and characters can be preserved, not just for this first development, but also 20 years down the road. Because once the plan's developed, unless there's a zoning change, that's the plan. And so that's the beauty of this particular zoning, is that S2 plan really locks you into and knowing what's going to occur there. Now, that doesn't mean that in the future there might be, the world goes upside down and we have new uses we never even dreamed of now. Well, then we open up the plan, go through the Planning Commission again, and go through those processes and create an amended plan that we would then follow. So that's kind of a really quick overview of the zoning. So again, we're at the point where we're looking at the Planning Commission approval, or not, sorry, just my tongue's tied, I apologize. We're just having the Planning Commission review the updated development plan tonight. On March 3rd, the City Council will again look at that zoning map change, and it would be for those 3 parcels, which is the entire development site, and that would be for consideration. So we just wanted to give that little tidbit, a little bit of overview. Planning Commission, of course, went into much detail in thinking about the zoning map change in January when we approved it. But we've already done that, so I wanted to go ahead and turn it over to the applicant, unless you have a question.
Well, let me just ask anybody
About
else
process.
a question for staff on process? No? Okay, yeah, let's go to the applicant. please. Welcome back.
Thanks. Once again, David Cron, representing the Park Synagogue. We have the owner here as well, Josh Rosen. So just going to go through a quick presentation. We appreciate the opportunity to be back in front of you. We did sort of give you a sneak peek of where we were headed when we were here for our conditional use permit of the synagogue, which you granted. Thank you. So that gave us the opportunity to sort of lay the groundwork for the future use of this facility as a community arts center. And now we're getting into the real meat of the planning of the facility around it. So we, as mentioned, have had the opportunity to be in front of many boards already. We're actually, appreciate Karen's outlay of the schedule. So we're actually right in the middle of our potential meetings here with the city. I believe this is about meeting number 10 of what appears to be maybe 9 or 10 more that we have on the schedule so far. So they've all been really positive, great comments and feedback, really good discussions. And as you, I think, frequently hear, I hit the scroll button. I shouldn't have done that. I'm not even sure where I am. I'm in the white screen of death. I think I need the keyboard.
I'm grateful it was not just me.
There we go. There we go. Back to where I started. Yes, thank you very much, Brooke.
We're back.
We have had really great conversations. So just to simplify the schedule, just once more, we are here to just start to share some of the actual numbers and disposition and formation of the plan with you today, to hear your feedback, public's feedback. Be back in March for a true working session where we'll roll up our sleeves. And then hopefully by April, we're ready to really get into the details. I just wanted to share a snapshot of what that schedule looks like on our end and all the work and preparations that are going into it. So you're not supposed to read this, but just know we're right around halfway through that list as we stand today. And speaking of lists, as we get ready for our more robust discussion next month. We are about halfway through our checklist of the many, many drawings, documents, and detailed reports that are due as requirements for this S2 zoning for the development plan. So we have already shared a number of those with the team that have been reviewed not only with planning, but also with traffic and forestry and so on and so forth. So we have an unbelievably long list of specialty consultants on this project. To name a few, speaking of sustainability, Davie Resource Group did both the water delineation and the tree preservation report. They're working on the preservation plan with us. They're also out there twice a year treating our beech trees to keep them alive from the beech leaf disease. And they'll be managing during construction the protection of all of these wonderful trees that make up so much of the character of the site. And they're just one of, you see all these different colors of the specialists on this project that are ensuring that it is in good hands. So you all know this facility by now. Just a reminder of the number of buildings on the property, 2 of which are currently slated for demolition as part of this overall master plan. The boiler house is coming down as we speak, not by permit, but just by nature. We will be taking it down officially here soon enough. And then Kangesser, we're planning to keep during construction and maybe to some point after, but eventually unless we find some magical use for it in the next few months, it would also be slated for removal in future development. So getting into more detail on the overall planning, existing conditions, this is just really here for reference. We can come back to it. And by the way, we've submitted as part of this package full-size plans, 30 by 42, with a very high level of detail to the planning department so they can really get into the nuance of this. So this is the first draft of the development plan, or what I often refer to as the preliminary development plan. I'm going to use the shorthand PDP tonight to save my tongue of saying that over and over again. So what you're seeing here is, of course, the historic synagogue restored, and then the 3 different parcels that have been divided, as we were just talking about before. Parcel A along Mayfield Road, north being left of the ravine, the Dugway Brook. Parcel B being the historic temple and its view shed. Very important that it's connected back to Mayfield, the original entry. I just want to make a little footnote there. There's been some discussions with landmarks, and it is the owner's plan to restore the original gates that were taken down a few years ago. Those are important architectural features that were designed by Mendelsohn. They do exist at Euclid Heights Boulevard. They'll be restored there as well, but they'll be replicated down at the bottom. And that important parcel really starts there, and that is the most important entry or way of experiencing the building by all of our historic research. And then parcel C is that remaining property to the back where the existing daycare resides, and will continue to do so for the first number of phases of this project. So what we've done is we've sort of broken up each potential building pad by a little sequential numbering system based on the parcel so we can keep it straight. So when I say building C2, that means we're in parcel C, and it's the second of the 2 parcels we're studying in that section. The other thing to note is we're identifying the limiting heights and the proposed number of units in each one of these potential building pads. We're not able to give you specific building forms at this time. Most of my experience has been in urban districts and planning, and it's very easy to do preliminary development plans or PUDs or PADs in urban districts because you can just show blocks and streets and you just dimension the streets and the blocks take a shape of their own. In more what I would regard as park-like conditions like this, the forms are a little harder to determine. There aren't blocks. I can't give you that this thing is 200 feet long and 250 feet wide. So we've given a sort of general area, but what we are holding ourselves to is a building relationship or disposition to adjacent property boundaries. So what you'll notice is around the perimeter, we're identifying these circles with numbers in them. So for instance, I think Karen had pointed out there are height regulations as part of the S2 zoning. And so the height regulation is that up against a single family district, which we're completely surrounded by, we need to be twice the distance away as the average height of our roof. So in this case, we have a 35-foot tall structure proposed on C2, and we would hold 70 feet minimum away from that, or twice that height. I do want to note that 35 feet is not an accidental number. We're imagining that any of the parcels within that 35-foot height would be 3 stories max, and that is also, as you may recall that number, the maximum height for single-family residential in the same district surrounding us. So we're basically honoring and upholding that same height regulation around us. We're also honoring that because we have to. The National Park Service is very insistent that this building, the beautiful historic synagogue by Eric Mendelsohn, is and will always be the most important building on this site. To that end, we are honoring, there's a slightly hard to read purple line running through the middle of this site, noted as historic boundary. I don't know if I can zoom in on that or not. No. But everything to the right or to the south of that historic boundary, the National Park Service would insist that those buildings honor and relinquish any height relationship to the dome itself or any of that building. So you're noticing, even though we're in parcels A for A3 and A4, and back in the corner for C1 and in the corner for C2, all of those are held to that same 35-foot height, just to be very clear. And then north of that boundary, the National Park Service has no purview over that, and in which case we are proposing taller buildings, which of course feel more appropriate because we're now up against Mayfield Road, and that's where we're saying that we might have as many as 6 stories and 72 feet high. The one thing I do want to point out about this is the A2 corner around the mikvah. The mikvah has been in debate in the early studies of whether we could relocate it. We've heard back from all of the consortium of synagogues that use it, and it is a beloved building and is still highly used. I can attest from our staff on site that it's used multiple times a week still, and will continue to do so in the future. So by keeping that very important building for this region, the A2 form has taken a bit of a slight morphing of opportunity for its shape. We're not sure how it fits. I would also note that A2 sits on a pretty steep ravine with a very densely wooded area. If it doesn't look familiar to you while you drive around, it's because you can't see into it at all. It is completely dense wooded area. It would probably be the last parcel we develop because it will be the most challenging, just to be very clear. But the shape of it is a little tricky. Some of it falls with the grade, some of it falls maybe perpendicular or parallel. We're not sure. It's the hardest shape to draw on this, and we've studied it the most, believe it or not, with the least, I would say, opportunities to know exactly what it's going to look like. So to that end, we've tried to build in a little bit of, call it, insurance on what the height might be for the A2. So you notice in the top left, I have a sort of skee ball game shape of circles up there. It starts with 70 feet and then it goes at 15-foot increments as it goes down. And the thought there is if A2 needed to get a little closer to the property line, we would step the heights down in accordance to the setback regulations. So even though the building might be closer than, say, the 145 needed for a 6-story, 72-foot tall building, we would take the building down each level to correspond to the proper height. Think of New York and all the buildings that sort of step for zoning in that situation. So we don't want to do that. If we don't have to, we'll keep the building further away, but we wanted to try to build in that opportunity if it made sense to keep the building a little closer. We're also feeling okay about that because those are our good friends at the Greek Orthodox Church that are right up against that parcel line. We share opportunities to do events and share parking and stuff together. So I don't think they'll have any concerns about that. So what are the numbers? Hard to read on this slide. Let's jump to the big screen. So those are the 3 parcels listed at the top. The acreage there, as we've been talking about, roughly 28 acres, over 1 million square feet of beautiful property here. Delineated each block here, A1 through C2, with various program uses. Most of the unknown uses we're identifying as some type of mixed-use multifamily or just simply multifamily. Note that there really isn't any commercial listed here. There's a potential for some amenity. The only commercial use that is currently on the site, technically not commercial, education, is the daycare. And that is a use that they would like to maintain, as this is a multi-generational campus as part of the vision for this site. So if they get relocated based on the plan you were just looking at, we would try to move them into one of the other buildings we're developing before taking down their facility and replacing it with something else. There could be other amenities in this building, one of these buildings. There potentially could be some amenity that is also commercial. The operators have things like bakeries in their buildings or salons or things like that. So that could be a potential. But at the moment, we're not expecting any significant commercial space. This is primarily the Community Arts Center and residential uses. So we're totaling somewhere around 500,000 square feet proposed, 410 units over 28 acres. I just want to note the text on the bottom. So I tabulated the square footage allowable number of units based on the M2 density. And so that allows 750 square feet per unit. Notice I left out parcel B because we're not even considering the synagogue. That's sacred and left off the calculation. So right now we'd be entitled to roughly 1,200 units on the site, and we're proposing roughly 400 units, so 25% of the allowable density. And again, that's to preserve the forestry, the beautiful site, and really make this as much a park as it is a home to the future residents. And then zooming in a little bit to the phase 1 plan, so the restoration of the synagogue, the demolition of the buildings noted previously, and the first residential buildings we're referring to as townhouse apartments. Right now, we are showing 15 of those townhouse apartment buildings. Let's zoom into those so you can see it a little better. Calling that block C1, not really a block, the form C1 in the corner there, 35 feet in height maximum. Actually, the building right now is somewhere between 33 and 34 feet, depending on where the grade falls to the average roof height. Notice the setback of 70 feet, no problem on the south side. But as we brought up in previous discussions, the form of the building and the requirement to be a certain distance back from the Mendelssohn School wing at the back of the synagogue is forcing 2 of the units to just tip into that 70-foot ideal setback on the 5-row house section there. They are approximately 37 feet away from the property line, but by S2 standards, doing twice the height distance as the height, they would need to be 70. So we will need to seek a variance for those 2 units. We have studied a number of other scenarios to avoid the variance. We tried smushing them a little bit further over. The National Park Service is insisting on that little red dashed line there and the gap in between them, which is to say they would like the corner of the 1 5-plex building to align to the Mendelssohn building, and they want a gap in between them. So they're not allowing us to sort of push these together. This is important for them because as you stand or approach the front door of Mendelssohn's original entry into the synagogue, it's important that you don't see a continuous bar of architecture that visually blends in with the synagogue. They want to break in the form. And then the certain distance away is sort of forcing us to have to slide into that 70 feet. There's a certain minimum density that the owners need to achieve in order to build this, so we can't just chop off 2 units and try to make it work. The pro forma needs this many units to make this development economically viable. We looked at lowering the heights of those 2 corner units. Unfortunately, that's not really possible. Notice how they're hitting at an acute angle. If they were hitting at maybe a perfect perpendicular condition, we might be able to just take 1 floor off of one of the units and call it a day to meet the heights, but you can see that it's not actually the case, and we would have to drop both units 2 floors. In other words, build a 1-story piece, which is, again, not very viable for the architecture. So we are working with planning to kind of think about what our screening opportunities need to be for the landscape. There is a couple positives to this site. Positioning of those buildings, notice all of the trees that are sort of ghosted in without hard rings around them are all existing. So we have a very dense amount of existing trees, and these are just noting the ones on our property. There's a series of trees on the other properties adjacent, and then you're seeing there are a couple handful of garages back there as well. So we'll be working with our landscape team to come back to you with a very detailed plan for how we're working through enhanced screening on the eye level, so evergreens and shrubs and other things that are going to create some enhanced screening. Same with anything around any kind of trash enclosures and whatnot. So that is our next step in getting into the details with your team at the city, and back to you. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know, Josh, if I left anything out that you want to jump in on. All right. I'll just leave it on this overall development plan because that's probably the easiest to speak to.
Any question? I mean, we're going to have a lot of opportunities to review and And I guess if there's anything now, the one thing that comes top of mind to me, especially as we talk about the townhomes, the C1, and is that when we do get to that point, and I think we're months away, but maybe sooner. We always like to see, and I may have mentioned this already, like the visuals and lighting in the plans of what the neighbors will see from their backyard, what the view will be from the townhomes. So again, you don't need to do that now or describe it now, but on tap for when you come back with the plans.
Yep. I think Karen has read your mind. She's asked for the same view.
Well, we ask every time we have a big project, so yeah, we've kind of made that an expectation.
Okay.
Anything else? No.
It would appear that the houses on Compton are on very deep lots.
Yes.
And you are actually worried about where that C1 is going. I mean, it is, almost 100 feet from the backs of the garages on that street. It's not like on my street where there's the house, 10 feet further, there's the garage, and then we're onto somebody else's property.
Well, and we had the same conversation with the Oakwood development. That was a similar, where there was a lot of concern about the proximity, but the depths were much further than most of the city. So, yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This is fantastic. We are looking forward to seeing you again at the next meeting. Karen, you had?
Were you going to ask if there was any other public comment?
Yes, we can. Is there public comment on this? Anybody here that's, have you been sworn in yet? Okay, great. So if you could just come to the microphone.
Good evening. My name's Crandall Miller. I'm at 1528 Compton Road. And 33 of my 42 years in Cleveland Heights, I've been at this property, which does adjoin to the east, one of the deeper lots, as you said, sir, which is the reason I bought the property and which we enjoy. As numerous neighbors had the opportunity to tour the buildings over the last 3 years or so, there were a lot of commitments about maintaining the site. And obviously, we knew that there would be some mixed-use development, that type of thing. Everybody's assumption is that the bus lot would be the first priority. That's logical, it's there. But to maintain more of the green space in the park-like setting of this historic site, it's gorgeous. This surprises me because we were also told recently that the forested area had been reviewed by Davey and others, and there's failing foliage there, but that would be restored and rebuilt and maintained. This plan shows a lean toward pretty densely, in my opinion, populating this for, dense retail or dense residential and, the potential for retail within the S2 zoning classification, as I understand it. I would like to respectfully request that the commission contemplate and review the ability to convert versus the S2 to the MF2 and try to restrict some of the level of development of this site. To me, I've been all around Cleveland Heights and adjoining communities, and this is a city of trees, and a lot of the trees are going to be sacrificed, the larger dense areas sacrificed with this development plan, in my opinion. Thank you.
So much. Just out of, just a question for staff. We've dealt with tree replacement. You can take a seat. Thank you so much. We've dealt with tree replacement. Don't we have some, I don't know if it's regulations per se, but don't we have some requirements around if you take a tree, plant a tree?
Absolutely. There is a tree ordinance that requires that if there's a tree of a certain caliber removed, you have to replace it with a tree.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The applicant's aware of that, so that's part of their process as they're moving forward.
Okay. And then just to the question of the, and now we're on a different presentation, so you can't go back to the process slide, but the zoning change to an S2, that is the one that's up to, we had referred that for approval to council, but I just want to let you know that that'll be up for consideration at council's meeting on March 3rd. So that would be, if this is a concern of yours, to attend that or provide email comment to council, because they'll be voting. We vote to recommend it, but they vote to actually approve it. So we don't have the final approval on that. Okay. We did public comment, but 1 second, after we finish public comment, then we can have the applicant come up to answer any questions. Was there somebody? Okay, you just come up. Were you sworn in at the beginning? Okay.
Good evening, my name is Alicia Fiddler. I was sworn in, I live at
Just pull the mic down a little bit.
1561 Compton, which faces the backyard of all the people affected by this property. Of course, I think all of us are very concerned because we take this place, which has been very pristine and in a certain condition for so very long, and we all as neighbors have traversed it with kids and dogs, and it's very special to us. So developing it at all kind of like is a knife in the heart to me, especially, but I know that, we have to move along. I'm opposed, number one, to any commercial use that could be going on there. Number two, it's a little concerning that we're already talking about variances in this stage of things. Number three, I ask will the existing trees be maintained as much as possible? And I know if there's a replacement thing that, we're taking out perhaps a mature tree that's been there 80, 100 years, we're obviously not going to be able to replace that with anything that's going to be giving us near amount the canopy or shade that we already have. I have a question about the topography of the non-developed areas, I guess the areas around the synagogue itself. Will the ravine area that dips down be maintained as part of that historical piece of it? And does that fall under the park designation? So the trees in that park designation get preserved, but then the other areas that are up for development, the trees are gone. And I would ask that and I'll bring this up later, of course, that we really strongly consider this, as much as we can ask, not developing in A2. I mean, we have wildlife and deer who are going throughout the neighborhood. There are foxes, there are hawks that live in two pine trees that are there. I am concerned with the, seems like evaporating green spaces in Cleveland Heights for development that sometimes don't fully get developed. And we have then adjusted the property for such, and then we don't have any spaces in which we can go to enjoy the wildlife or for the wildlife to exist. I have herds of deer and red fox, in my yard regularly, and I know they go back and forth. And if we are putting this many units in this space, it's really going to radically alter the feel of the neighborhood. So I would ask for fewer units than more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, is there any other public comment on this? No. Okay, so David and Josh, do you want to come up, or Josh, to address just anything in public comment that you want to respond to? Yes, and I don't think you were sworn in. Oh, you are? Okay. Okay.
Just a couple of notes. One
And
is that.
sorry, just make sure you're talking to the mic because it gets recorded for the minutes.
Got it. Just wanted to note a couple.
Name and address.
Oh, my
also,
name
sorry
is
for the-
Josh Rosen, 2306 West 17th Street in Cleveland. Just wanted to note a couple of things. The first is that these, I'll call them blobs, that's probably not the right word to use. They're, at this point, just concepts of where something could go. And I know we mentioned that earlier, but to give an illustration, we just signed a new lease with the daycare for many years, and that's right here. That's where they are right now. So could this be future development in the future, a decade from now? Maybe, but that's not the plan right now. So it's to say that agree with the plans, disagree with this. We're not entertaining all of this all at once. It's a slow process. Second thing I want to mention, and I suppose the definition of a conservation development, it could be under debate, but even in this plan, 21 of the 28 acres are left as green space. Last thing I just want to say about this parcel, which is that these parcels, is I think it's important to note that at its peak, Park had 2,800 families. So many families that it needed to buy the Mayfield Road parking lots. There was a swimming pool there were summer camps there were after-school classes there. It was a space for busy activity. Now, in the last 20 years, as they opened up a second campus, that slowly diminished. And COVID sort of ended really Park being active, the synagogue being active here. But I think when we think about the history of this parcel, it's important not just to think about 2020 and what it could absorb, but think about how it was originally designed as 28 acres being used every day. And that perhaps that's the more aspirational reference point we should be thinking of as we reimagine how to redevelop this property. I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, so that is that for that agenda item. I won't see you. Jim will see you at the March 3rd council meeting and others. And thank you so much. And you don't have to stay. We're going to do some zoning business. So thank you, everyone. And let's continue moving on project number 23-07. These are the zoning code amendments that we recommended for approval to council. They have approved it and sent it back to us. Now we will approve it. The only question I have is, does it go back again? Or is this the final?
Thanks. Right.
No, it's okay.
We were just adjusting to give him back his flash drive, but I needed to make a copy for public record, so I didn't want to give it back to him without doing that. Okay, so what this is you're correct. The Planning Commission did review these previously, and you did make recommendation to send them forward to be considered by council. As you all will recall, that the legislation got delayed for a number of other reasons that we'll probably talk about in a minute.
Right, because these are the zoning code changes from 2023.
Correct.
Yes.
And so that ordinance died, so we have to reconsider it. So what happened was the zoning change amendments from 2023 were reintroduced as ordinance number 10-2025 to City Council. Then it was recommended to Planning Commission for us to consider and make a recommendation about them. That will then go back to City Council in a form of a resolution, which I gave you, similar to what we did in the past. So
you're saying we're doing this again because
we have to do this again because this is a different ordinance. So the process began again. So it was introduced into council as a new ordinance, and so it got referred back to Planning Commission. The Planning and Development Committee of council did hear and review it, but then this goes back to City Council and then forward on.
Bob, how can we?
Is the substance of this the same as the one that was previously approved by the commission? Is it just a matter of timing?
It's a matter of timing and because it's a new ordinance. It's not the same ordinance that it has a new ordinance number and was reintroduced. Yes, but the substance.
In terms of the contents of it.
The content is identical to what we've already reviewed as a planning commission, right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm prepared to review and talk through this.
No. Let's continue on because I
did very boring slides, except for this one, which was interesting. But we are very excited about this because as staff, you all know that we always struggle with this exact problem with front yards. This is giving us new names for corner side yards and front yards. But if you remember, we now have about 4 pages to try to figure out what a front yard is.
And now we're going to almost.
This will allow us to just use the standard 25 feet. So it's going to make life a lot easier for anybody trying to do any project within the community. It's
okay.
A good amendment. So anyway.
I
won't go through
love
this.
hearing about the changes, but we're just going to continue, and I am going to call for a motion.
Just for the record, let me say you did receive the red lined copy, and so you are familiar with what they are.
Again.
I didn't want anybody to think that you didn't take a glance at.
No, we did. Yes, of course. So I am entertaining a resolution to refer for approval ordinance number 10-2025. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, no abstentions. We'll try this again. Councilman Petrus, perhaps we can be more successful this time. Okay, thank you very much. There's no staff report on planning activity. It's on the agenda, but there's no report. Okay. There is old business. Actually, I want to just 3 pieces of old business. One is project number 21-17. That was sent to us in the packet. They're asking for an extension, I believe, of 48 months. This was obviously for obvious.
Correct.
Yes. So just to be clear, the motion is to actually make the extension or?
Yes, so this is not reopening the case.
Right.
This is just asking for extension of time to complete the development. So initially, they were to have had that development completed this year. Obviously, the fire has set them back to square one. And, the first, as you saw in the letter that was sent, they first have to get the fire inspection has to be completed before we can even start to talk about demolition and then rebuilding. And, we just didn't want them to have to come back again for the project should they be able to rebuild the building as was originally approved. Obviously, should the design change or something alter, it would then come back.
Okay, so I am going to entertain a motion to approve the request from the applicant of project number 21-17 Cedar Lee Meadowbrook development for a time extension as requested in the letter that they submitted to the commission. So moved. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, no abstentions. That passes unanimously. Oh, and I'm gonna, just as a note, I'm gonna sign. Who had the motion for the resolution for the zoning code changes? Was that, Mike, did you move for that?
I wrote down, Lenny made the motion and then Judith seconded.
And can you say, who had the Len had the?
I did.
Oh, yeah, the code changes. That was, and you, Ken? Okay. I just want to do this so they don't have to send it to me. And we had 6 ayes. Okay. Christy, I have this for you guys. Okay. And then the 2 other things. One is my mistake, Karen, because we did get the email. It just got lost in my inbox, but I wanted to call the commission's attention to the email update on the houses of worship piece. I was able to read through it right before the meeting. I want to publicly express my disappointment that the mayor does not deign to attend the second meeting that they have tried to have on this subject so we can move this forward. This is also 2 to 3 years delayed. It sounds like from the memo, I can't tell if they're optimistic that it's going to be rescheduled soon. That context is not here. I mean, I'm okay with the plan, but I continue to be frustrated by the administration's lack of engagement on this issue. And I don't know what else to do. I'm trying to respect the planning staff's management of the process, but it's not getting to council. And we are now in February, and this was almost a year now because it was last May of 2024 that it was sent to council and then pulled by the administration. So now we're approaching the year mark of inaction on this, even though planning staff has been working diligently to move it forward. So this is my monthly reminder that I'm quite upset about the way this process is moving. And then third old business, just the gas station, speaking of revocation of conditional use permits, the gas station on the corner of Berkeley and South Taylor is daily not complying with the parking restrictions that we put on them when we considered the revocation. Yes. And I happen to pass by them pretty often. I have kids in the school there, and also that's in the neighborhood, but I just want to bring that to staff's.
And we appreciate that. Actually, our zoning inspector, who happens to be with us tonight, as he usually is working also with our economic development team to work with all of the auto uses, because we're finding that it's not just the one that you're mentioning, but other auto repair shops that are also having the same issues. So we are trying to address it. We understand that one is maybe needs to be moved up in our priority, and but we are trying to look at it holistically because this seems to be a common issue with most of our auto repair shops.
Okay. All right. Any other old business or? The boat, I don't think is there, just an inordinate amount of cars in this tiny little park.
The boat did get removed almost immediately, yes.
Yeah.
We have one more piece of old business from Mrs. Dixon's case at the Caledonia Community Center.
Okay.
As far as her parking plan, she emailed me this afternoon and said the East Cleveland School Board president was drafting a letter. So we're still waiting on it.
To allow parking in in their owned lot.
Right, and Steph's also worked with her and talked to her a little bit about where on-street parking could be and that she would need to have a more detailed description of how that would work and contact that would be available should there be somebody, for example, parked too close to a driveway or something. We wanted to be sure that there would be a number that would ring through to a person in case there was a complaint.
Okay, great, okay. Yep.
Real quick, and I guess this would be tangential to that case, but when there's communication from a person in the community, sort of on behalf of a party who has an active application in front of the Planning Commission, is there a policy on communication with this third party?
We directly asked the party, Ms. Nixon, if that third party was representing her and was told no, and that she was a private person. We directly asked Ms. Dixon if that we had received complaints about this case and how it was handled, and asked her if she would prefer us starting from scratch, from ground zero with her. And she said, no, I'm happy where I am. I'm a private person. I don't know why she's continuing to talk about me.
And I did, just as a note, I did check with planning staff after the last meeting about that too. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.